Next guest attended Harvard Law School, studied international politics at Oxford. She worked with President Bush, and she worked with me on the Fox News channel. Yet despite that, in all of that sterling resume that she has, she somehow ended up on CNN. Today, she's the national spokesperson for the Republican National Committee, and she explains the rise of Donald Trump in her brand new book called The New American Revolution, The Making of a Populist Movement. Would you welcome, please, Kayleigh McEnany. Good to see you, Kayleigh.
Good to see you, too.
You know, Kayleigh, you were one of the brightest people we ever had on the staff when I did the show on Fox News. And then you went to CNN, and I thought, have you lost your mind?
I think I did lose my mind. It was quite an experience.
But, you know, you were such an incredibly important part of helping to explain what was happening in the election of 2016. And it was pretty lonely on that set, wasn't it?
That's right. It was 8-1, and I say 8 because the host was a liberal. There's no secret about that. And then when I got embattled, they added one more. So it was Jeffrey Lord and I, and it was 2-7 rather than 8-1. It was quite an experience. But look, CNN viewers have never heard a conservative viewpoint, Christian viewpoint in many cases, and I thought it was really important to bring that light.
When I would see you come on, I would go to the audio version, and I was always so proud of you because you weren't mean, you weren't screaming or yelling, but you held your ground and you understood the issues in a very winsome way.
Well, thank you. And I spent 3 years learning from you. I mean, we literally were in a room with about 6 others and watching you engage with the issues. And every week, it equipped me to have a common sense education that I don't think I learned at Harvard or Oxford, but I learned in my dad's truck listening to some of the greats like Rush Limbaugh. And 3 years with you really helped me to be equipped for CNN.
Well, you're very kind to say that. I want to talk about your book, The New American Revolution, The Making of a Populist Movement. What do you mean by populism? A lot of people hear that term, they have no idea what that means.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that it's some angry, nationalistic term, and it's not that at all. And I think you were a forebearer to the Trump movement, and what I mean by that is when I sat in your office, you oftentimes talked about principles that would anger the Republican Party, like the idea if you've paid into Social Security your whole life, you get to keep that. It's not necessarily Republican doctrine, but it's something when no one else would say it, you would say this bit of pragmatism that shed light on our party in a way that was helpful. And I think Donald Trump brought some of that in there. And it's looking out for the people. Ivanka Trump said it to me best when she said, my father's pragmatic. So when my principles run afoul of the people, that's when we change, not to sacrifice your values. We never move on pro-life. We never move on religious freedom. But on Social Security, that's a place where we can move and be more populist.
In this book, you went all over the country, you met people, and you interviewed them and talked to them and got their stories. What did you learn?
I learned that the American spirit can overcome anything. And one of those examples was Kim Copeland, who lost her only son and husband in the Nice terrorist attack. We all remember when that refrigerator truck poured through a crowd of people, Bastille Day in Nice, France. And she told me that when her husband was hit by this truck, and so was her youngest son's body was being carried back to the hotel as her husband struggled to keep up from behind because he also was hit. And he kept asking, is Brody okay? Is Brody okay? Is Brody okay? And he asked that for an hour and a half as he was transported to a hospital 1.5 miles away. And his last words on this earth were, Brody is dead. And he went to be with the Lord. And she said, my husband saw my son and he went to be with him in heaven. Because otherwise, how would he have known he was 1.5 miles away? So the American spirit can overcome the most tragic incidences in life. And it was encouraging to see that.
You know, those are powerful stories, and your book is filled with them, in which you talk about people. They're really not political people. And I think that's one of the things that folks did not understand about the 2016 election. This was not about people who were highly partisan, who went and voted. These were people who had voted, maybe they voted Democrat in the past, they voted Republican in the past. What they were voting for was something different. What they wanted was disruption of the swamp, of the deep state, of this monstrous government that, whether Democrats or Republicans have been in control of it, it really didn't change very much.
That's exactly right. And you mentioned to me when I interviewed you that you saw something different on the campaign trail that you hadn't seen in your previous times out there. You recognized an anger and a frustration. And your daughter, Sarah, said to me, you know, President Trump, he didn't tell you what you wanted to hear. He said what he truly believed. And that, I think, pierced through, and a bunch of Americans who had been forgotten recognized authenticity. And that's why they elected the president.
You've remained a staunch conservative. I mean, here you are, you're a millennial, you've gone to Oxford, to Harvard, to Georgetown, you've been to every school that normally would crank out a person who is extremely to the left of center. Why did you not get captured by the academic fervor of those schools and the environment you've lived in? What's kept you grounded?
A mom and dad who took me to church every Sunday and instilled faith in me. And no matter what liberal doctrine was pronounced to me at some of these institutions, my faith was always my guiding light, and nothing can put a cap on that light when you have that in you.
Kayleigh, I hope people get the book. It is really terrific. It's filled with inspiring stories. And for those of you who really just want to be reminded of how great this country is, this is not a book to make you mad. This is a book that will encourage you and make you say, wow, I'm so glad to live in the United States of America. It is that kind of book, and we need more of that. And you have done a magnificent favor to the people of America, and I'm so proud of you. Just so proud of you as you have continued to stand strong for all of these wonderful beliefs that you have articulated tonight.